My God.
And the winner is Devil May Cry 5.
So when Devil May Cry 5 got Best Action Game at the Game Awards, I wasn't really that surprised. Even though I hadn't played the game yet, I'd only heard good things about it. I was just kinda dragging my feet getting to it. I was also kinda surprised it didn't get nominated for Game of the Year alongside Death Stranding. I mean, I still kinda feel like my personal Game of the Year was Death Stranding, but at the same time, I kinda feel like Devil May Cry 5 is also Game of the Year. Look, let me explain. See, Death Stranding is a game that's looking at new ways to expand the narrative into its gameplay elements while also creating a strong emotional core. Plus, it's interesting, unique, and fun. I spent so much time with that game because all of the elements within it just kept me engaged and wanting more. I feel like what Death Stranding was trying to do with the medium is really beyond what anyone else is currently trying to do. That's perfect Game of the Year material. Meanwhile, Devil May Cry 5 is a video motherfucking game. Holy shit, is it wild. It is so enjoyable and the replayability is so high that it is truly a king in the realm of video games. It aims for qualities that are completely different from Death Stranding, but that doesn't make it any less of a game. So yeah, fuck it. Game of the Year for both titles. You know, there are some games with cutscenes where the characters do all these amazing things that you don't really feel like you're able to replicate in the gameplay. But in Devil May Cry 5, I never felt that disconnect between cutscene and gameplay in terms of what a character is actually capable of and what you're allowed to do. This game is so fucking fun that I played through it not only once, not just twice, but 3 fucking times. First I played it on Xbox through Game Pass, then after unlocking the real normal difficulty, I wanted to play through it again, but at a true 60 frames per second at 1080p. So I bought it on PC, since, you know, sales are kinda everywhere right now. So I played through it again, unlocked Son of Sparta difficulty, and played through it once more to fully experience the game. Because honestly, your first playthrough is like a tutorial for the real game. I did tap into Dante Must Die a little bit afterwards just to get a feel for it, but yeah, I think I'll take a bit of a break before I tackle that shit. Now, since I'm so late to the party, it's highly probable that many of you have already played this game. I mean, it was the best friggin' action game of the year, so yeah, maybe you just want to know where I think it stacks in comparison to that other one. Ugh. Honestly, at this point, I'd say they can't even compare. Looking back at DMC after playing 5, all I can think is, that shit wasn't Devil May Cry at all. That game belongs in the goddamn trash. DMC was just more generic garbage that tarnished the style of a franchise. Also, this one motherfucker could assert his vision of cool, which he clearly believed he embodied. So yeah, fuck that game. I have no tolerance for it anymore. You know, it was fine, but at the same time, I was only reviewing that game as its own thing. I actively tried not to compare it to the rest of the Devil May Cry series. And that was mainly because I wanted to approach it from an unbiased perspective in order to counteract all the media-related drama surrounding it. And I think since that's how I approached it, I didn't really have the series present in my mind at the time of recording that. But now, Devil May Cry 5 has brought it all back. Memories of 3 and 4 rushed back, with a surprising small hint of Kamiya's original getting a little nod here and there. This is Devil May Cry. Hot, intense, combo-heavy action that wears your little bitch-ass thumbs out, mixed with cheesy, over-the-top coolness that ends up working because it relishes in how fucking ridiculous it is. I think the new character V perfectly encapsulates all this. He's got that early to mid 2000s edgy, smooth goth look, walking around shirtless in a sleeveless trench coat and wearing those fucking hipster sandals, reading poetry constantly.
Pardon my delay. I was catching up on some reading.
And using it to make a point?
As the air to a bird, or the sea to a fish, so is contempt to the contemptible.
God, I fucking love this character. He's absurd. But see, they embrace that shit. The game makes all the action and cheesiness feel natural. It doesn't feel forced the way DMC was trying so fucking hard to be cool. Dante doesn't get blowjobs from strippers. Dante is a fucking dork with a noble heart.
Whoa, looks like I took in a little too much. You okay?
I know I didn't want to approach DMC before from a not my Dante mindset, but that is not my fucking Dante.
Not in a million years.
You know what? Since I didn't rely on the past Devil May Cry games for comparison with the DMC review, I think I'm gonna do the exact opposite here. Now, I am going to directly compare things here and there between DMC and Devil May Cry 5. Because, as I said earlier, fuck that game. So just like that original DMC review, let's start by talking about the gameplay. Devil May Cry 5 gives you 3 very different characters, all with a ton of combat tools you'll continually expand through upgrades and unlocks. And while everybody is fun, each character is almost like its own difficulty setting. V is easy, Nero is normal, and Dante is hard. I mean, that's literally how they line the characters up in promotional material and within the game itself when you're allowed to choose between them. So let's start with V. This guy summons creatures to fight for him while he stays back, only going in for a killing blow. Your gun button is a projectile-heavy bird and your attack button is a close-range panther. Initially, I had a difficult time with V's button layout since I typically wanted to have the bird continuously blasting enemies while I had the panther doing attacks. But with those 2 buttons being right next to each other, the thumb just kinda mashes between the 2 of them and it gets messy. Fortunately, the developers knew this may be an issue and they included a button remap option. Hallelujah! I was able to switch the bird over to the left trigger, which made it so much easier to do 2 things at once. Though, you know, you really shouldn't just mash. I mean, you can mash, but you're gonna get fucked up real quick since your pets do have health, and if they get bodied, they're gonna be down for the count until you can revive them by sticking close to them, which means you'll be standing in the danger. Or you could just pop the devil trigger, which will instantly revive them. Anyway, the reason why you don't want to mash is because you have moves linked to directional inputs. So if you're doing an input for the panther while also pressing the button for the bird's input will be affected. So maybe you had something else planned, but then your bird teleports over to you and does a different attack. Well, then you fucked up your combo, and that could mean bad news depending on the situation. But normally you should be okay because you can keep a healthy distance from everyone just fine most of the time and just kinda kick back and read a book that builds up your devil trigger and just straight up style on bitches. Oh, I should also mention when you hit the devil trigger, you summon a massive golem that just smashes shit right the fuck up. And in a surprising number of situations, the golem actually has unique summoning animations. Maybe they'll come out of the ground or plummet from the sky like a comet, but they could also burst through a wall like the fucking Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah! So V is all about keeping your distance while managing the health of your summons. As long as they're close to you, they'll heal back up. I think almost every single level I played with this guy across my 3 playthroughs were S ranked because he's so easy to use, but at the same time, he's still very fun, so I can't really complain. Though if I had to make a change, it'd be to have more situations where he has to fight in close quarters. Having to constantly move around and not get hit while managing my summons happened pretty infrequently, but it was a really fun challenge. Next, we've got Nero. He's basically the main character, with V and Dante kinda acting in a support role capacity narratively. Nero has a bunch of tools at his disposal, but it's moderated in a way that he doesn't feel overwhelming. There's his sword, which you can rev up like a motorcycle during combat for stronger attacks, either by revving it up separately or hitting the rev button right after an attack for an instant charge. Along with the sword is his gun, which can charge up and do an extra powerful blast, which is a great get off me option. And finally, he's got his badass new mechanical arm looking like Big Boss up in this motherfucker. See, before in Devil May Cry 4, Nero had a demon arm, but yeah, so that's gone now. But he still maintains his grapple mechanic, along with a whole slew of badass new mechanical arms, all thanks to his sultry mechanic Nico.
Flirting with me? Knock it off.
Anyway, Nero's arms, right? So anyway, Nero's arms have their own unique abilities, and you can hold a select number of them in your inventory, which is another thing that you can increase through upgrades. You keep whatever arm is equipped until it either gets destroyed when you're hit while using it, or if you charge it up and use its ultimate attack. By the way, Ragtimes is especially fun for... Or you could just detonate it, which is a handy way to get out of grapple situations. The abilities in these arms vary so much that your combo game plan can greatly change depending on what you have. If you have Overture, you'll blast opponents away vertically and horizontally, so your follow-up moves need to react to that, or maybe just grapple enemies back to keep it close. Gerbera is a solid escape option since you can cancel attacks into it and propel yourself in any direction. Ragtime makes a little time bubble that holds everything that touches it in place for a limited amount of time, but if you get hit while the bubble's out, that arm's gone. This arm has led to some really hype moments where I would just play around and experiment with combos and utilization and end up going, oh shit, yo, what the fuck? That's fucking awesome! Punchline is a rocket arm that homes in on enemies and punches the shit out of them for a bit before returning. And if you hold down the arm button as it returns, you hop on and fucking Marty McFly hoverboard around the place doing kickflips and shit. God, this fucking game. Next, you got Helter Skelter, which is a strong-ass drill that digs deeper and deeper, comboing into itself if you repeatedly use it. The Tomboy boosts your gun and sword so you do crazy damage and movement, but I'm not really a fan of using the gun portion when this is active, since it'll make you aim in third person. It kinda breaks up my groove. So you gotta make sure you deactivate it if you wanna throw in a few gunshots before you continue a move. Rawhide is alright, but I kinda feel like I missed something about it. Apparently it boosts your grapple skill on top of whipping everything around you, but I didn't really experiment with it much. The same goes for the Buster Arm. This one's a slow but strong, wild-ass grab move that's unique for every enemy type. Though, when you beat the game, you get a new default ability that does the same thing, so it kind of makes this thing pointless. Unless I'm missing something, since, I didn't really do much with it, so maybe there was more to it that I just don't know about. That's the beauty of this game, though. There's so much shit to dig into and explore with the combat. Honestly, it's like a fighting game. There's specific timing to get certain attacks to come out in a button combo, and you also do directional inputs to have certain moves come out. Sometimes it's just pressing back, and sometimes it's pressing back forward. Personally, I love fighting games. Exploring characters, digging into the combo system, learning bread and butter combos, and then branching off into my own ideas. Devil May Cry 5 takes that whole mindset and injects it into an action game, and it works spectacularly. As opposed to DMC, where the moves are just kind of like God of War. Or maybe a more apt comparison is Heavenly Sword, which was also God of War. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything against God of War. I really enjoy that series, but that's not Devil May Cry. And yeah, DMC has a combo system, but it's so fucking forgiving that when you hit that triple S rank, it doesn't feel rewarding. Whereas in Devil May Cry 5, I feel like I'm really doing well if I manage to get the triple S ranking out of my combos. It actually feels satisfying. Also, let me just address the grapple mechanic real quick. See, in DMC, I really was not a fan of how easy it made everything. But in Devil May Cry 5, I love it. I think the difference comes from the fact that the grapple in this game has limits. Some enemies are too big for you to pull in, so you may get pulled to them instead, or others may just cancel the grapple altogether. DMC had only one enemy that could break grapples, but even then you could still use it if you just exploited their combat pattern. DMC's grapple was just so fucking overpowered. Plus, you could just stay in the air way too easily and just yank up enemy after enemy. Devil May Cry 5 limits your airtime so much that there's actually extra challenges hidden within the levels that make you try and stay in the air as long as you can. It's tricky and requires thought to figure out. Shit just feels so much more fun and satisfying in this game compared to DMC. And I haven't even gotten to Dante yet. Holy shit, this man. As you progress through, he gets up to 4 weapons and 4 guns. And technically, he has 2 more swords since the Rebellion gets replaced a couple times through the story. Along with that replacement are changes to the moveset, and once you finish the story, you can choose which sword you want. Personally, I was a fan of the Devil Sword Sparta. Plus, on top of Dante's weapons, he's got access to 4 styles, all with their own extra moves. Now, I won't dive too deeply into the styles, but here's a basic rundown. Trickster gives you a dash, Gunslinger gives your guns extra moves, Swordmaster gives your weapons tons of extra moves, and Royal Guard gives you a block that can kind of shift into a parry of sorts. I used Royal Guard the least, mainly because my guard timing was mostly shit. Also, once you've upgraded the Trickster style a bit, I feel like it kind of becomes a better option just because you can straight up teleport and dodge attacks. All these things can be upgraded to have more moves and functionality, and it's just fucking insane. Each weapon and gun has a time and place to be used, and the same goes for the styles. But see, the thing is, the time and place is rapidly changing with Dante. 1 second you may need the sword for some meaty swings, but then it's time to switch over to the fire gauntlets and get some quick and fiery punches in. But then maybe you want to wrap it all up with a beefy motorcycle slash. Or perhaps instead you want to opt for the triple nunchucks and do an icy flip or a fiery stripper pole dance. But oh shit, there's an enemy in Berserk mode coming up behind you. Guess you better switch into, I don't know, Royal Guard and block their attack, or maybe switch over to Trickster and dash in and out. You stay constantly active, constantly engaged, and constantly thinking about what tools you want to use next to keep your ranking high. Truly, Dante is this game's hard character, but only in the sense that you're given so much to work with compared to anyone else in the game. If you're not ready for it, you might not utilize even half of his moveset. And on top of Dante's moves, he's got his Devil Trigger, which eventually gets a second, even stronger state you can opt for. The trade-off between the two is that while the regular Devil Trigger heals Dante and removes his flinch state, the new form doesn't heal and sucks up the Devil Trigger's meter, but has insane damage output. So it really depends on if you want to heal up and keep the fight going, or risk it all in a big attack with really long startup that leaves you vulnerable. Now compare this to DMC's garbage-ass Devil Trigger where it just launches everyone up in the air and you can just do whatever the fuck you want without fear of risk. Get that fucking easy baby mode bullshit out of here. Speaking of easy mode, Devil May Cry 5's default difficulty really isn't insanely challenging. I mean, yeah, I died plenty and struggled here and there, but it didn't feel like the default difficulty of a Devil May Cry game. That's why I felt the need to play through again on Son of Sparta mode, because that felt like Devil May Cry. There are more unique enemies in locations where they didn't appear before, and some even have extra moves. Plus the fights get so intense that your thumbs are just gonna be flying all over the fucking controller trying to pull off all these moves and fighting to survive. There was one point after I finished a level that my thumbs felt so worn out that I had a flashback to that same exact feeling when I was playing Devil May Cry 3 when I was younger. And that's when I knew this shit was perfect. So those are our characters, and throughout the story, it jumps between them. Right after you get comfortable with one, another gets swapped in and you gotta change up your entire thought process. But the game is smart because it has you spend the first 5 hours or so with V and Nero before they finally introduce Dante. And that basically gives you enough time to get familiar with varying styles and changing your mindset, since that's what Dante's all about. It's friggin' brilliant game design. Stages are mostly linear with a couple instances of branching paths and a lot of extra nooks and crannies you can go to in order to find extra missions or other treats like... Holy shit. Is that another rocket launcher? I didn't find this on my first playthrough. What the fuck? Oh my god, I can combine it with the other one I get later? Holy fuck, is that the Ghostbusters proton beam? I'm sorry, where was I? Right. So the levels are mainly moving between arenas with a little platforming here and there, which feels awkward at first because of the stiff jump mechanic, but once you get used to it, it isn't nearly as much of an issue. It's mainly there to just kind of break up the monotony of running from room to room, and honestly, it's just enough that you don't really think about it. It would have been cool if they put a little more thought into it and maybe developed the stages to utilize your attacks within platforming, but honestly, I'll take it over DMC's whole
pull out the next one, then grapple to climb over a ledge, or grapple to go across a long gap, grapple and jump to the next one, grapple the edge, grapple and grapple another ledge, and then grapple one edge again, and then you have to grapple over yourself that grapple, and then you grapple yourself to the gap.
Combat is this game's focus, and that is where it shines. And fuck, man, it shines so damn bright, it feels like you're looking into the goddamn sun. Boss battles are all plenty fun, but my personal favorites are and this guy. Just a good old one-on-one brawl where if you get good enough, you start canceling his attacks out, and it's like, oh, what? I'm sorry, were you trying to do something? Nah, fuck you. Nah, get your ass on the ground. Time to get fucked. Beyond the story mode, you can hit up the Bloody Palace, which is essentially a never-ending tower of pain. You're just beating up wave after wave of creatures with limited healing supplies and seeing how far you can get. The only thing I could think of that would have made this mode even better would have been a 2-player co-op option. And honestly, it's kind of surprising they didn't go for it with how much the game teases the idea by having you run around and see other characters who are doing things at the same time in the level. But, you know, since they actually added it to the Switch release of Devil May Cry 3, which, by the way, why are they not adding this to every other fucking version? It's probably gonna happen in some way for Devil May Cry 6. Oh, and I almost forgot, to top off this fantastic combat, you also get a motherfucking lock-on mechanic. See, DMC? You see how easy it is to have one of these? You see how useful it is? You can even have moves that are only available if you're locked onto an enemy. So it has even greater purpose. Man, my #1 gripe with DMC is answered, and it's a freaking godsend. Now, on top of this awesome gameplay, you've also got this kickin' soundtrack where your character's theme ramps up as you get a higher combo ranking. It starts off with a quiet instrumental, but eventually goes as far as to include lyrics and blast at full fucking volume, getting you more and more pumped up and into the groove of the combat. And then you have these gorgeous visuals for the characters and the levels thanks to the RE engine. Now, I will admit that when they initially showed things off at E3, I had a brief moment of panic because Nero was looking awfully similar to this Dante. I actually thought we were getting a sequel to that garbage. But then I heard my man Johnny Young Bosch and I was a little bit more at ease. I was still kind of shell-shocked by the Western design style for the faces, but it actually grew on me. The levels themselves are pretty standard. There's a lot of goopy, creepy demon blood layers and devastated towns, and it all looks solid. It's just that nothing really stood out to me the way a couple of DMC's levels did, but I didn't really have time to smell the roses since I was so focused on kicking ass and not getting my shit pushed in. So I'm not saying that Devil May Cry 5's environment design is weak or disappointing or anything. It was cool, and I liked some of the city street levels. It's just that it wasn't anything to write home about. But the character designs were top friggin' notch. Mad props to getting this southern gal with a huge overbite fine as hell. Everyone just looks real while maintaining the essence of their characters, whereas DMC's characters just kinda look boring as shit. Which, you know, I guess kinda works when you have a story that's just stupid, whack garbage. And I mean, while Devil May Cry 5's story isn't anything amazing, it's still leaps and bounds better than any of DMC's shit. Oh, by the way, if you want to skip any story spoilers, though they're really kind of obvious reveals, you might want to stop the video now. Ooh, shit, if you're gonna leave, be sure to, you know, just nudge over to that like button. Give it a little smooch with your mouse. Yeah. and then just do a little reach around to the subscribe button and just kind of rub that mouse right along the side of it. There you go. So Devil May Cry 5 does some really interesting stuff with its narrative. The story isn't fully told linearly, so they kind of give us this timeline between levels that lets us know if we're going forward in time or if we're going back in time, or maybe switching between characters and seeing what they were doing at the same time. But it never gets confusing by any means. It's just interesting. Honestly, that's how I feel about the entire plot. It's a bunch of interesting, fun little ideas with a surprising amount of heart that really shines in the finale. But here's the really interesting thing about the story. See, the producer for this game, Hideaki Itsuno, said at one point that apparently he liked DMC. There was a rumor that he didn't and almost left the company after that came out, so who knows? Maybe he did like it. It just kind of feels like lip service, and I'm not really sure how much of it is genuine, but Devil May Cry 5's premise almost feels like a continuation of DMC's ending. So basically, DMC ended with the demon world merging with the real world and demons overrunning the earth. In Devil May Cry 5, the crew are trying to take down a demon that has opened a portal to hell, allowing demons to just roam around the earth while also using the blood of the dead humans to fuel this fruit they want to eat and gain ultimate power. It's just really weird how you could almost play DMC and then jump into 5 and be like, oh yeah, so this is kind of where I left off. So basically, our crew's goal is obviously to take this guy down and cut off the portal, but there's this air of mystique as to who hired them to stop this demon, which, I mean, do you really need to be hired to take care of this shit? What the fuck, Dante? Who is the mysterious V, and why does he have these crazy demon powers? So the first half of the story is relatively straightforward, with the villain just being some dude who wants power just because, up until our big reveal that V is, in fact, Virgil.
And I got a bigger dick.
No, stop that. Bad Virgil. Okay, the reveal is a little surprising, but it was also kind of laid out there. Well, that and I annoyingly had the reveal just spoiled for me a few days before I started playing. I went almost that entire year since it came out without knowing any spoilers, and then all of a fucking sudden, boop, there you go. Well, shit. But whatever, it just gives a whole new meaning to the game's events. Virgil took back his sword, the Yamato, from Nero, which resided in his demon arm, and then he stabs himself with it to absorb the demonic power and separate himself from his humanity. Crumbling and weakened, V, who still has demon power for some reason, looks to Dante for help. So the big bad demon looking for power is actually doing it purely out of jealousy for his brother, who he believes not only has more power than him, but also had their mother's affection. It's something that makes him willing to destroy the world, not quite for revenge, but just to get the satisfaction of superiority over the sibling he feels got everything while he got nothing. So since V is still, in fact, Virgil, all of those desires exist within him, and his true goal, it seems, was to reunite with his other self after Dante beats the shit out of it. So on top of the revival of this sibling rivalry, we also have the emotional connection through Nero. Nero not only finds out about the bloody history between Virgil and Dante, but also learns that Virgil is his pappy.
When it comes to 2-year-old Nero,
Virgil.
you are the father.
After living a life basically alone, emotion starts building up within Nero at the possibility of not only losing the father he just found out he had, but once again failing to save a loved one. This pushes him to the point of basically going Super Saiyan, regrowing his arm, and beating everyone's ass into accepting that they're gonna live as a family and like it, goddammit! So then Virgil agrees to help out with stopping all the demon bullshit he started and goes to hell with Dante in order to cut off the portal, which will basically separate them from the human world. But don't you worry, that rivalry between the two is definitely still there. It just takes on this new non-murdery form where there's an affection for one another buried underneath a fading feeling of resentment. It's cheesy, it's fun, it's heartwarming, and overall, it's just fucking awesome. It's nothing deep or amazing, but as someone who likes the characters and world, it was just a really pleasing progression to finally see after 11 fucking years. It's a story with characters and emotion that was completely absent from DMC. I mean, yeah, it was trying to be clever with its twist that Virgil was the true evil and that Dante shouldn't kill his brother. Wait. Holy shit, it's the same fucking thing. I mean, there's obviously plenty of differences, but these climactic story points are almost exactly the fucking same. So like, Virgil goes to get Dante to help him stop Mundus, just as V, who is Virgil, goes to get Dante to help him to stop Urizen, who it is revealed is also Virgil, who in DMC is the true villain since Dante was just being used to help him play out his plan for power, and then Dante aims to kill Virgil, but a third party urges him not to do it and Dante agrees? What the fuck? It's the same shit! I mean, it's done way fucking better in Devil May Cry 5, but it's almost like this game is styling on DMC.
Think you can beat me? Not in a million years.
Slow.
Not in a million years.
Oh my god, they even used the "not in a million years" line? What the shit is happening? Oh fuck. And then there's that part in DMC when it's all slow-mo, and that's kind of like the intro with Nero where... Yo, what the actual fuck?